Gran Turismo 1 knocked it
out of the park.
It's easily one of the best PS1 games ever released, and basically gave the racing game genre and PlayStation the kick in the ass it needed. It sold over 10 million copies and who knows how many PS1s. It also cemented Persephone as a proper game developer and made careers and lives out of all those involved with its development. It was king, and not only put itself on a throne, but helped Sony sit atop its throne as well. However, time is a cruel prick, and games don't really have long lifespan. 3 years later and the game was sort of mouldy. It wasn't old or anything, but it just started to show its age. Sort of like this fruit. Not bad, but not fresh. The sort of thing where you'd still eat it, but if it was next to a fresher fruit, you'd grab the other one. Anyway, the game was almost due a second title, and the one thing we know about sequels is that they almost never live up to expectations.
It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I am all out of gum.
My opinion on whether this game is better or not is slightly complicated, and I'm not going to actually reveal it until later. But do note that for the for and against argument sort of thing going on, I will be neutral. The good. Gran Turismo 2 was intended to continue and improve on the series. 1 was good, but there's always room for improvement. That was the basis for the design of the game. Some people see these changes as negative, some see it as positive. For this section, we will view them as positives and look at the other side later. Firstly, the physics were heavily adjusted. A common characteristic trait of handling in Gran Turismo 1 is how the cars would weirdly dash into corners, like a sort of oversteer with a ton of front grip that kicks in a second later to cancel it. Don't get me wrong, it's very manageable, but it's kinda odd. You know, I'm not saying it's bad, it's unique. It definitely explains the quality of my driving in the Gran Turismo 1 video because I wasn't used to it. But the change made driving smoother and made it feel like gravity is an actual thing. One of my complaints about Gran Turismo 1 was the detached feeling the cars have to the road. Back to the gameplay, besides the detached feeling the cars have to the road, the driving is solid. I guess I wasn't alone because that was addressed in these changes. The graphics also received attention, although I'm not sure why. It's a PS1 game and I thought they already pushed the limits of that box, but as we know, Polyphony isn't exactly happy with good enough.
Welcome to how I felt for a long time, and I get moaned at for fucking voicing my opinion.
So it received a few tweaks and fixes such as improved reflections, shadows, and overall more smoother, higher quality textures. I know the differences aren't exactly huge, but they are there, and side by side are noticeable. The main difference, however, was the additional cars, tracks, and features crammed into this game. The original game was toasting PS1s left and right during its development, yet somehow managed to remain on one disc. If 2 requires 2, how much have they done? The answer? A lot.
Goddamn right.
The car count has been upped, slightly, from 172 to 618 cars. Note this number does vary slightly between regions. The tracks also received attention. More were added such as Rome Circuit, Apricot Hill, Midfield, actually, no. They added 16 and I'm not listing all of them. Anyway, they got more than double. The existing ones remained mostly the same with some small tweaks and improvements. The cars they added were actual cars from around the world, not just Japan like the first game. They also added different types of cars. Instead of just street cars, you can pick from race or rally cars as well. Rally cars? Why would you need... For rallying, idiot! 7 of these new tracks are off-road, adding another layer of challenge to the game. The rallying itself has its own slippery physics to master and creates a natural need to add more cars to the game. The additions definitely gave the game some much needed girth.
What do you mean by that?
And added literal hours of game time for the player to enjoy. Car modifications also received major attention, as the types of upgrades got upgraded, pun intended, from simple power boosts and weight reductions to all-out race builds. You can adjust almost every factor of a car through the tuning menu and turn a simple noob street car build into a flat-out race car. Other features can be found as well in the Professional tab, such as adding traction control to certain cars that don't have it, different types of limited slip diffs, and anything else you can think of to make the car behave like it's bound by a whip. Additionally, events also received a buff compared to Gran Turismo 1. While the usual Sunday Cup and Clubman Cup are there, the rest don't really have any flavour. Yes, they are good and have good variety in their titles, such as 4-Wheel Drive Challenge, Anglo-Japanese Sports Car Championship, stuff like that. But think back to the fruit with this one. 1's events are nice, 2's events are nicer. They have more complicated rules and specific regulations. They also feature a sort of world tournament thing and endurance races. This creates more variety for the player and warrants the addition of more events as well as more cars to use in them. The dirt tracks and subsequent dirt cars only add to this. The extra playtime helped Gran Turismo 2's more factor over Gran Turismo 1. The whole idea of 2 was to add to the franchise, not change it. While they did adjust a few things, the adding part was the most prevalent. All these things helped Gran Turismo 2 to have a loyal and loving fan base that prefer it to 1. Gran Turismo fans in general enjoy all the games in the franchise. In general does have quotation marks on it, by the way. But the argument between 1 or 2 being better is one of the more stronger ones amongst the fans. These features help the group for 2. However, the other side has some things to say. The bad. One of the main things people look for in a successor is change, a difference, or reason to separate and be able to choose one over the other. Humanity is always looking for ways to differentiate and rank things. Power of choice comes from what we perceive to be better. To be able to choose, we must prefer something over something else. Now, with that philosophical teaching aside, Gran Turismo 1 and 2 are very similar games. Yes, the physics were changed, but if we're being honest, it was more of a fix. There are more cars and features, but the overall layout of the game stays the same. I'm going to sound like the biggest hypocrite in the later videos, but the truth is that 2 is more similar to 1 than every other game in the franchise is to each other. Prologues and shit don't count for all you smartasses. Gran Turismo 2 didn't really have any groundbreaking changes or effects on the gaming industry like its older brother. Instead, it acts as a Gran Turismo 1 improvement instead of a separate sequel. Many people believe this to be the easy way, and think that they should have tried to be more imaginative in the design of the game. The idea that there was no effort towards changing means that a lot of ideas and possibilities were left on the table. While these might have been implemented in later games, it's still not a good idea to have the fans thinking that. In fact, back in the day, many people opted to stay on Gran Turismo 1 instead of 2. Theoretical stuff aside, I do actually have a fact for this section that is a major factor and negatively separates Gran Turismo 2 from 1. The difficulty fluctuations and the cheating ass AI. It is very well known that the Gran Turismo 2 AI are cheats. From using cars that have too many mods allowed, to flat out using cars not allowed to enter, looking at you here Ford GT. In fact, Rome Circuit has become a meme due to this prick. There are literally around 30 to 50 instances of AI cheating in one playthrough. Now, if the challenge was fair and consistent, it might be okay, but it's neither of those things. While most cheating instances are manageable and beatable, there are a select few that are just cancer-inducing. But you're greeted by the easiest race of your life by the other ones. I've worked out there are basically 2 skill levels you need to be able to tap into to succeed. Your inner stig is required for the hard races, but for the easy races, any teenage Asian female on their learners can win. This is impossible to ignore as you're unaware of what you're getting into before the race. And it's not like you can prepare before the race either, because even with a maxed out car, it still proves a challenge. This can break the flow of the game, and many players will see themselves repeating events because they got absolutely left in the mud. While most of these circumstances are avoidable by restarting the race to remove the culprit, this isn't exactly in the spirit of Gran Turismo and really shouldn't need to be done in the first place. The difficulty in Gran Turismo 1 is much better as it's more of an ascending slope, while Gran Turismo 2 looks like a drunk toddler tried to draw the slope. This could deter people and annoy those who play, costing numbers in the fanbase as well as reduced overall enjoyment. Alright, time to stop picking on Gran Turismo 2 and talk about its gameplay and what it offers. Upon first booting up, you're greeted with the greatest song in all of Gran Turismo. Honestly, if Gran Turismo was a country, this would be its anthem. If I was king, I would require all migrants to perform this song on a kazoo. The menu is familiar and simple to use. You buy your first car, maybe whack an exhaust on it, then you're off to the races. That's the formula all the way up to sport and works nicely. You enter your first race and hopefully win. Get money, buy things, win races, and then it's license tests. This is a brick wall in every single one of these games. You can't progress without passing it. And it is a bit of a slug, but overall, once they're done, it wasn't that bad. They can add a fun challenge if you're sadistic, but once they're done, they're gone. That soundtrack though. I don't know why Polyphony have such bangers that are also perfect for the mood. I'm not going to talk about the soundtrack too much, as I already have in the Gran Turismo 1 video. But to summarize, banger, not too in your face, warm and perfect for the setting. Really makes you feel at home and grabs your heart. The soundtrack will be covered in depth in the latter videos, as the idea of it stays the same. The approach the game has to its players is welcoming, and definitely gets them attached to the game. The way this game can make you grow attached to a virtual item is incredible. I've played heaps of other games, and I'm usually sentimental with my cars. I mean, I even regretted selling my Bugatti in GTA, but Gran Turismo takes it to the next level. I will not sell a car. I simply can't. I won't even consider it. The game worms itself into your heart and is just so lovable. This theme persists in the whole series and is definitely present in Gran Turismo 2. The gameplay as a whole, in a good way, is very typical of Gran Turismo, and minus a few difficulty concerns, is very nice and very hard to complain about. While the gameplay was similar to Gran Turismo 1, what was very different was the market left and its significance. Gran Turismo 1 was an innovative game that set the tone for a lot of gaming's future. The graphics, the physics, the analog sticks, it was all very important. Gran Turismo 2 on the other hand was still important, just less innovative. The importance comes through proof of concept. It proved that Gran Turismo was a sustainable series. The game had similar sales and is a strong contender when people are asked what their favourite racing game is. It proved that Gran Turismo wasn't a one-game wonder and proved to Sony that Polyphony were capable of having reliable, current, and relevant games for PlayStation to boast in its libraries forever. Please note each of these qualities die out as the series goes on. My opinion on this game is somewhat blurred. On the one hand, I love the game because I love the series, and I can also respect the individual effects the game had. However, just like Gran Turismo 1, I didn't actually play the game in its day, and considering the development of this video took extra long and literally bricked my reverse compatibility PS3, I'm not exactly rushing to play it any chance I get. While this is more situational and not at all the game's fault, it makes it really hard to get lost in the game. I still have, don't get me wrong, but there's just something missing for me on Gran Turismo 2. All the charm and warmth that Gran Turismo has is not 100% there in Gran Turismo 2. It's still very prevalent, but when I go back to Gran Turismo 1, there's just something that hits differently. It's very hard to explain, but I'm on the side of people who prefer 1 over 2. I'm fully aware that technically 2 is a better game. I mean, I did just do a whole video explaining that. But Gran Turismo 2 has a more mass feel to it that takes away slightly from its charm. Gran Turismo 2 is a good addition to the series, and served to progress Polyphony and Gran Turismo as a whole. It didn't innovate, as it was never meant to, but where it did achieve was giving girth to the series. While on paper it's better, not everyone is sold on it, as it has a more mass market feel. The debate is entirely down to what you seek in a racing game, and what your preferences are. My professional, psychological, mythological, every single word you can add analogy is that Gran Turismo 1 is a quarter pounder, while Gran Turismo 2 is a quarter pounder deluxe. More on paper, but entirely preference based. Thank you for listening to me ramble again. I don't know if the rest of the world has quarter pounder deluxes, but we're in Australia, so if you don't understand that conclusion, oh well. Be sure to check out the other videos, especially the one with my voice, as they're just better, and be sure to stay tuned for more videos.